Bat Force Radio.
Bat Force Radio is rated M for mature, or should that be immature?
Hey guys, Dustin Nguyen.
Hey, this is Scott Snyder.
This is Paul Dini.
And you're listening to Bat Force Radio.
And you're listening to Bat Force Radio.
You're listening to Bat Force Radio.
This is Tom King. I write Batman Bitch, and this is Bat Force Radio.
Welcome back to a new episode of Bat Force Radio. This is a very special edition, and it's one that we've been planning for a while. We're kind of, because of the situation, no new books are coming out. We're kind of digging back into the file to a classic. We've collected a group of friends of the Force. Let's introduce everybody. First, we've got Jesus from New York.
What's up, everyone?
We've got Robin Cross from Canada.
Hey.
We've got Everything Batman 219 from New York.
Cheers.
We've got Bat Force Grumps from New York.
Hello.
We've got Vigilantes and Villains from New York.
What's up?
We've got a very special guest, the Cult of the Batman from New York.
Return.
And I am Grandpa Batman. So let's dive into this book. Oh, first, let's do the little intro thing. This is Bat Force Radio, the DC affiliated podcast with no wiki needed. So yeah, we're going to talk about Batman, the Cult, written by Jim Starlin with artwork by Bernie Wrightson. This was a book that originally was published in 1988 in a 4-part miniseries on premium format, much like another title written by Frank Miller 2 years before. And just like that book, it kind of followed suit as a more darker, adult-themed Batman story that started to become more and more popular and in the 80s. Opening up on page 1, we get this view of this house on this hill. And that, to me, that just looks like it's straight out of a horror movie. What did you guys first think of that?
Yeah, that's definitely, it reminds me of Kelly Jones' artwork, honestly, yeah. Definitely that horror feel up on the hill and everything.
For sure.
Sort of disbelief, too. Like wondering, all right, how, obviously we find out, we find out what it is, but Bruce is wondering, how did he never see this house before on this property? So it's super intriguing right from the get-go.
Yeah, it starts off, and he even says something like, I know I should run to my father and report this strange trespass. And it's just that phrase right there. It kind of shows you that the mindset, a little bit into the mindset. Here's Bruce Wayne, Batman, and even still, as an adult, he still has this thought that I need to go to my father. There's this part of psychology that, whenever something traumatic, something happens to someone at a young age, it like freezes that moment in their mind. And even though they may grow to adulthood, in a way, they're still that person at that moment that event happened. And in Bruce Wayne's psyche, he's still a small child dependent on his father at some point for certain instances. I found that pretty fascinating.
And the fact that he picks his dad, too, and not his mom, like the paternal character being more comforting in this case than the maternal one.
Yeah, it's like his guardian, he thinks of his dad as his guardian,
Right.
Makes him feel safe.
And I love, below that, Bernie Wrightson, he can draw a story in like 4 panels, and that's what he does, where he shows Bruce wandering through that house with like this big old cannon and all this armory, and it's the same picture just broken up in different periods of time as he's walking through this house that he's found. And that happens over and over in the book later on. I just love that sequence like that.
He's good at that.
And we also see this returning theme. Like one of the first things we see here is Batman sort of becoming himself in his mind changing from that scared boy, turning into Batman, and then killing Joker. And that's a theme that we see later on in the series as well. So we see this theme of when Batman is hallucinating from what we'll see he's been drugged by Deacon Blackfire. What he keeps hallucinating is himself killing his villains.
Yeah.
And that speaks to something that is clearly on his conscience, the fact that these villains that he deals with over and over again continue doing the things they do because he hasn't done this.
Yeah, and I mean it shows, metaphorically, but also in his mind, he's physically walking down, and it says each step downward brings me closer to the fear, the fear of, whatever the bats, that he's afraid of as a kid, the fear of the gun from the gunman that, killed his parents. Everything about his life is based on this fear, and in his mind, he is literally walking a set of stairs down to this fear.
Yeah, and you see him after he goes down the stairs, then it leads him to, he finds a trap door in the floor, and this theme of going towards fear, towards this fear underground, is obviously very similar to the cave that he fell down into as a child.
Right.
I also want to jump into, like, even when you just jump into the first page, I think the thing that really captivates you is the use of colors and the brushstrokes.
Oh,
because
yeah.
that really, the color is so important in this story because it really takes you through his emotions and also takes you to those like psychedelic states that he's going through. And as you'll see, each page will change color, and it kind of helps give another layer of emotion on what is going on in his head. So the color is just really captivating from page one,
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing to you. It seems like there's a limited color palette on each page, and it's almost like a character in itself.
And Bernie Wrightson definitely has his own clear style in his art, but throughout this story, depending on the situation, his art style that he used ranges anywhere from, like Grumps mentioned, Kelly Jones style, and you see a lot of pages that he's doing a very similar Bill Sienkiewicz kind of style as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of red, a lot of blood red throughout this issue.
The color artist is Bill Ray, by the way.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Really beautiful.
This book came out following the popularity and the acclaim of The Dark Knight Returns, and it shares a lot of similar themes to Dark Knight Returns, obviously, and other Frank Miller work as well, where it hits really hard on themes of the high level of crime that's in the city, using Gotham as a very clear analog for New York in the story. It's even referenced when the citizens of Gotham are running from the city. It's referenced that they're going across to Jersey. Mm-hmm. It also uses themes of politics and the media, but with maybe a little less of the disdain for the politicians that Frank Miller used, and maybe a darker and more shocking level of crime, at least for the timing comics, because this was a rare case where you would see a character or characters multiple who were not Joker responsible for mass murders, beheading people, hanging bodies in the streets. And then even what happens with Batman, like things get so dark in this. You have even Batman being broken and having to leave and regroup. And you can't really get much darker or further into the theme of all being lost in Gotham than having Batman being thoroughly physically and mentally defeated, and even when he returns, coming towards the end of the story, he's still so unsure of himself.
It's almost like this book and Dark Knight Returns and stuff were almost like the blueprint for like today's Black Label. I mean, because in those two titles alone, you're seeing Batman at a level of violence that previously wasn't really used that much, and especially in this book. This book really pushed the boundaries of what you can show in a comic. I mean, perfect example is, as Joker appears and Bruce transforms from a scared little boy into Batman and just goes batshit crazy on Joker with an axe.
Was that a pun?
Yeah.
The story wouldn't have existed, as you guys were saying earlier, without the work of Frank Miller. I mean, that blew the doors wide open and allowed Jim Starlin and Bernie Wrightson to tell this story. And back when I read it, when it first came out in '88, I remember it was right after Dark Knight, and just shocked at the level of violence and darkness, because it felt even darker in some ways than the Dark Knight did.
I'm sure readers at that time were like, "What are they doing with Batman? Are they?"
It's what I thought. I mean, it was like heavy politics, heavy religion, and really intensely told story.
I feel like this book, like you guys were just talking about, like the violence and like the gloomy, like I guess like cityscapes of Gotham, kind of like almost goes back to like like I always say, like the golden age of Batman, because if you really like read the first omnibus and anywhere from like Detective 27 to maybe like slightly before Batman 1, I mean, Batman was kind of like a really dark, gloomy guy. I mean, as much as you can be at that particular time, but like there was panels of him like or people getting stabbed with a knife, or him pushing someone off a ledge, or talking about killing someone, and then they kind of like made it a little bit more, I guess, kiddish, like when they had Robin come in on Detective.
Very campy.
Yeah, and like it was more like, all right, Batman's for like more like kids now. I guess maybe they had like an issue of like talking to people about killing people or death or murder, things like that, because like the first story is like it's him on a murder mystery, about so Batman's always, for me, Batman's always been a dark character. So like for me to read something like this was like a complete like treat for me. I mean, it's like I was always afraid to read Jim Starlin, because like I'm thinking to myself like, man, this like huge guy with like all these like colorful stones in space, and like Thanos, like
Mm-hmm.
It's like I thought it was like just like a joke. I was like, this guy can't write Batman, like And then I had an argument, not an argument, but like me and Grumps were talking about the KG Beast, the Mezco toy. He's like, yo, you gonna get it? And I was like, nah, man, I don't really know much about it, so I'm not gonna buy something I don't know much about. He's like, oh, you gotta read Jim Starlin, Batman, whatever, the 10 Nights of the Beast. And then that's when he put me onto it, and I was like, oh damn. I was like, this guy's pretty dark and pretty crazy with Batman. It's pretty good, That's why. That's why
same guy that killed Jason Todd.
Yeah,
I know, and that's where some of the irony is in the story, because he wrote Death in the Family, but he also wrote this with Jason Todd being kind of predominant in both of them.
Yeah, he really wrote Jason being Batman's saving grace in this story.
Yeah, I was like
with the slap.
Yeah.
I'm not like really a big Jason Todd fan, but like I did appreciate like for once in a while they're giving Jason like this, I'm a good guy, like I'm leading Batman, and like they kind of give him like a feel good type, which normally doesn't really happen for him. Like I mean, he's more like for me anyways, is like a neglected like kid that no one cares about, and that's why they killed him off. I mean, that's why they got voted off, right?
Well, it's funny because like this, this title here, The Cult, came out I think like August through September, October, November, and then Death in the Family came in December of '88. So immediately after he was already writing the death while this book's being published.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, the book was good because like this whole thing like with Deacon being like bathing in blood and keeping him young and stuff like that, that was pretty cool. Like you don't really hear about that kind of stuff, and I guess Batman stuff nowadays. I mean, I guess it's like more like an '80s thing, because you don't really like kind of like hear about these kind of stories anymore. It's different.
I think Robin served a purpose. His original purpose was to balance Batman and be the light. And even in this book, Robin is the one that brings Batman to the light out of the darkness.
Mm-hmm. True. Yeah. Agreed.
You know, I don't even know if there's a question, just kind of an observation that I'm kind of surprised that, you know, we have Batman like chained up with his arms over his head for a length of time. I don't know if it was days or weeks at this point, but he's never unmasked by Deacon Blackfire. And I just always wondered about that. Like, why didn't he? I feel like that would have broken him even more quickly, even quicker.
Absolutely. Yeah. Agreed.
So, like, why do you leave the mask on? I don't know.
It's probably symbolic because it was like, if you have Batman on your side, and you know how like he disappeared for a while, and everyone's like, "Where's Batman?" And later on in the story, you find out that they're like, "Oh, we hear that Batman's joining forces with the Deacon," and that, imagine how the people would have thought, like, "Oh my God, maybe this is a good guy. Maybe we should follow." I think it was more of like symbolic symbol of having him on his side.
I think
the mask is the power, though, isn't it? The mask is the power.
And even to Deacon's guys that he already has on his side, if he shows them that he has brought Batman over to his side, that's a much more powerful tool than him having brought this unmasked man over.
Right.
Sure.
Well,
that makes sense.
Deacon, he uses his totem as a symbol of his own power, and I think he's also using Batman as a totem, saying, look, I can bring this powerful, person, and I can convert them. If he takes the mask off, then he's just another man.
Right.
But if he leaves the mask on, he's a symbol, and the followers will be like, man, he's bringing Batman in, not just Bruce Wayne,
Batman's with us. Yeah.
That's a good question. Wow. Yeah.
I thought Deacon was pretty powerful, like, just for the fact of like him breaking him, like, in general. I mean, not many people have done that, obviously.
He did it before Bane did it, so
yeah,
it's pretty legendary.
Yeah. It is legendary. I think he was the first guy to do it, right? Wasn't he the first guy? Yeah, I believe so. Right there, it just sets the tone. It's just like that's very symbolic right there itself.
Well, outside of Wacky's 60s stuff, where he got hypnotized and things like that, definitely. The 60s were a crazy time in comics.
I think that was honestly, like after the seventh omnibus with the picture of the Red Hood on it, that's like what it was like beginning into the 60s. Like I think it was like after 55. That's like when like Neil Adams and stuff like that started coming in. It was like, I don't know, that's the stuff I just didn't read. I didn't care to read it. It was just not my Batman, So it was just, I don't know.
Hashtag not my Batman.
Yeah, everyone has their own Batman. People always like, Michael Keaton's my Batman. That's what I grew up with. It's just nostalgic. For me, obviously I didn't grow up in the 30s. Obviously I'm not Deacon Blackfire over here, but I mean, we're living in eternal.
You're not bathing in blood, bro.
I'm gonna go bathe in some blood actually right now, guys. I'll be back. Anyways, for me, I love the Golden Age Batman because that's where it started, and for me, it also resonates well with me because my dad was a comic collector. He got into this stuff and he was always collecting comics, and that grew into that. And he always told me, you got to read this, you got to read that, so. That's the reason why I always choose the Golden Age over anything besides Frank Miller. Other than that, that's my Batman, I guess.
So for the listener, kind of circling back around, the main antagonist in the cult is this character named Demon Blackfire, and he is portrayed as this basically like an immortal shaman who at one point was a shaman for a tribe of Indians at the birthplace of Gotham, and was his tribe turned away from him and entombed him in a cave and tied to this totem pole. And I think it's kind of ironic that here we are talking about this on Good Friday, because there is a little bit of religious, this is where Jim Starlin tied in some of the religious themes, because Demon Blackfire is kind of this Messiah character. He's ever living. He was shot with 3 arrows, which could have represented the 3 crosses. He was stabbed through the side with a spear, just like, Jesus was on the cross. He was put in a cave, and they rolled a stone across. So you can see how Starlin is, creating this, imagery with that whole theme, and then using that as now how everything in our society gets twisted a little bit, and Demon Blackfire, uses his abilities and is converting the poor, the homeless to his cause, where he's telling them, Gotham is overcome with so much crime, and the people that are running Gotham are so crooked and unfair, and they're the bad guys. They're the ones that need to be overthrown, and he has a mission and pulls those people into his cause.
The reveal of Deacon Blackfire is that he is a white evangelical.
Yeah.
There you go.
Which was popular in the 80s.
Yeah.
That very popular. And
Jim Baker.
Yep.
While he leaves his followers to, live amongst the dirt and eat shit behind the door
and starve.
He's living in luxury,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you see him go into that room that he has. It's like all done up nice, and you have like all these guys like living around dead people, literally. Like,
yeah,
it's pretty funny, man. It's like
meanwhile, he lives in the Trump Plaza.
Yeah.
I mean, I as I was reading this book, I was like, man, this relates to today as much as it did in 1988. It's crazy.
Yeah, because if you think about once everyone is told to evacuate Gotham, run to safety, and then there's half of the population stays there. Blackfire just wants everybody to get back to normal already. Just everybody to get back to business, just like what's going on today.
Yeah, nothing to see here.
100%.
Nothing to see here. There is a moment of humor. I don't know if you guys picked up on this or noticed it, but I had a chuckle when they were trying to unload those VCRs, and they were like $1,000 a piece.
Yes.
It's like, were VCRs $1,000 a piece?
Oh, man.
I don't know, 88. Wow. Yeah.
$1,000 a piece for a VCR.
Maybe a CD player was about that.
I don't know.
Legit. Yeah. Yeah, times 2,000. It's like $200,000.
Yeah, it was. It was $200K.
Yeah.
Split 4 ways.
Cash.
Man, I've got $1,000 sitting in my closet right now.
Talk about capitalism right there, man.
So eventually they brainwash, well, actually they starve out and they drug and eventually brainwash Batman and convert him to be in the cult of Demon Blackfire. Did I say demon? I meant
Deacon.
Yeah. You've been saying demon. I was just letting it go. I didn't want to be a dick.
It sounds better.
It's my Freudian slip.
He is a demon, right?
He is.
He does bear some thematic similarities to Ra's al Ghul, so you can be forgiven for calling him the demon.
Okay, well, whatever.
Especially towards the end.
Yeah.
So Batman gets converted. And where he sees the light, isn't that crazy? Whenever I got to that part of the book, I was like, wow. I mean, we talk about, Bane being the one that broke Batman physically in a fight, but I mean, like you guys said, I mean, Blackfire is the one that broke him spiritually and mentally, which, I mean, that's unheard of.
But to be fair, he did drug the shit out of him and starve him.
Yeah.
So
Right.
Yes.
Right.
And he didn't even take him into custody on his own. He was brought to him by chance.
Right.
Agreed.
So,
yeah, he definitely cheated.
Yeah.
I've read a lot of Batman stories over the years that have involved hallucinogens or hallucinating, and this is one of the best stories that's ever shown or portrayed drug addiction and hallucinating. I mean, the art and the writing were so spot on with it, and they had it drawn over such an extended period of time. I thought the team did a really bang-up job of showing addiction and hallucinating. True. Yeah, it was a nightmare.
One interesting thing is that they ripped the symbol off his suit, which right away in the first 10 pages. Or whenever he's captured, the symbol is off, which is powerful.
Yeah, it's just not on him at all.
Yeah.
He has a symbol for like the first picture on like the third page, and then after that it's just gone.
Right.
Yeah.
And then when he hallucinates and is seeing himself as Batman, he has a full suit on. He has the symbol on his chest. But then when he comes back to the reality of his situation, he goes back to not having it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What about the part where he sees the totem and he's pretty high and he's like the moment where he believes he becomes.
What was he on? Is it acid? So many questions.
Yeah, whatever he was on, it had him really messed up, and he went through heavy withdrawals after he came off it.
I mean, it had to have been a mix. It had to have been a mix because that's clearly acid and it's clearly like a relaxer, like probably heroin or some sort of opiate.
It was Flories. More likely to end up on the floor than the roof.
Wasn't like the late 80s like a crack epidemic?
Yeah.
Yeah, but this wasn't crack. You don't.
I'm just. He would have been aggro on crack.
No, he's hallucinating.
Parent program, guys. Don't do drugs. Don't do drugs.
Or don't mix them anyway.
Yeah. But
Drink a lot of water.
It's not Batman's only bad exchange with drugs. The Venom story where he. Yeah. After failing to save that little girl from drowning because he wasn't strong enough, he gets hooked on venom, trying to get himself stronger, and then has to go cold turkey off it.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, this is clearly New York City. You can see where the cops are driving, and they come to the square.
Gotham Square, yeah.
And that's like where, what is it, Broadway and 7th Avenue come together right there?
Yeah.
I mean, that is literally it right there.
Yeah, and there's a part where after he makes his escape, he refers to the park he's in as Gotham Central Park.
Yeah.
Oh shit! Yeah, that's right.
We were having a conversation about that the other day because in this book there's you could see the Flatiron Building, which is on I forget what street it is in the city, but yeah.
Well, it's got to be right there on. Well, it's 6th where we had the bomb blow up that one time.
Yeah, it's like 27th-ish, you know?
Yeah. No, I think it's 23rd.
How can you forget?
26 maybe?
Oh, because I'm nowhere close to there.
Because I'm not a tourist.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like whatever. Yeah, but then there also New Jersey is referenced in
right.
Here as
He
well.
mentioned that.
So
yeah.
we were having that conversation
Jersey in the house
about like where Gotham is.
Yeah, that's right. That kid made the comment on my page saying Gotham is everywhere or something like that.
It's, New York, New Jersey, whatever.
I mean, I just go back to, like I said, like, I guess, like, they in the movies, they use Chicago as like a, a reference, or I think they actually filmed Batman Begins there, right? Yeah.
Yeah, they filmed in Chicago.
Yeah, and then
film in a lot of cities.
Yeah.
I think they were in Canada as well, too.
In the story.
Weren't they in Canada at one point?
I also found it interesting when they did some like pan out shots of Times Square where it was like completely empty.
Yeah.
And that kind of reminds me of what's going on today, where you watch the news at 11 o'clock and you see Times Square, literally 2 people walking across.
Yep.
Like it's pretty much spot on with what's going on. Like,
Jesus, like I'm talking 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It's empty.
Yeah. I remember seeing your video, and you're like panning on like Facebook, and not one soul is in Times Square right now because of self quarantine, and it's very, very similar in the panels that he's drawing as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like
very timely.
Repeating it. Yeah.
Very timely. Yeah.
Yeah. This like you said, Colt, like reading the story and relating it to like present day time. It's such a classic formula that it could really fit into just different interpretations, like.
Well, it resonates more now with me than it did back in the day. Like it had a lot of impact then, but now it's like, holy shit, this is exactly what's up right now.
That's the same thing for DKR, though, right? Like both of the stories like resonate more today.
Yeah.
So these cops are driving in the square, which is like totally empty, and it's freaking them out. And the reason why there's no one there is, Deacon Blackfire's gang have come to so much power that they're starting to knock off, Gotham's bad guys, the criminal element themselves. And there's that there's that scene where the drug dealer gets nabbed by some shadowy figures in the background. I didn't know you could, in '88, I didn't know you could say shithead in a comic.
It's the only word in that word balloon. He just says shithead.
I read that and I was like, oh my God, that's awesome.
And you're reading an '80s comic when you see the word reefer.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There's so many words in this when you're reading an 80s comic.
That's true, Dom. Hey, all right. Here's one more observation. Okay, the cover of the first issue was embossed, and I'm wondering. I feel like it's the first time I ever saw a Batman comic or graphic novel with an embossed cover, and I was really into that back when I saw it. I don't know if that was the first one or if they've done it before, or do you guys?
Killing Joke was embossed, but I'm not sure it was first.
It was one of the first because this was in the real early times of these prestige format issues.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to that, everything was made on that real cheap paper, the real cheap color print. Dark Knight Returns did a lot in changing that. That they started making these prestige format books using the better printing methods.
Right.
Yeah.
It was a cool gimmick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like growing up for me, one of the first ones that I really noticed was like the laser cut issue in Nightfall, like what was it 500, where he kind of just laser cuts it and then you see like Batman embossed. But yeah, you never really see that. I kind of noticed that today, like on the sewer cap. It was like really like a nice little hint, little touch.
Yeah.
They should do it more.
They should.
I like those acetate, holographic, covers. It reminds me of when I was a kid going to the comic store, you'd go after the book with the nicest looking cover on it and just buy it just because of the cover,
Yeah, if it had a die cut shape in it or a hologram glued on the front of it, that's how you knew what book to buy.
It's so cool. Gotta get it.
Those comics aren't worth anything today.
Yeah, I know. You can still buy it for $1.25. It's like
easily. Yeah.
We're kind of getting to where Deacon Blackfire's using his cult to become the authority in Gotham, and they're not taking mercy on anybody, right? Even this one little kid that's walking down, and what is he doing? He's running numbers for gambling.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the comic book artist. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. They put that in there.
So this young man, he wants to be a comic book artist, but he's running gambling bets for a bookie, and basically gets killed by Deacon Blackfire's gang there. And then
the coolest part about this character's very brief inclusion is where it's explaining his aspirations for life and that he wants to be a famous comic book artist. It actually says just like Jack Kirby.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Man, they should just put Bill Finger in there, or Bob Kane.
Cool little nod, man. That's a cool nod.
Yeah. And then there's so much red. They say how violent it is. There's so much red after that, and it's like, holy crap, poor kid, and you feel bad for him.
Yeah, I mean, as you can see in that panel, it's like that red. It just gives you a glimpse of that one moment where you feel the emotion of the kid, and then all of a sudden it's over, and all his blood is just splattered on his artwork, and that's his passion.
Yeah, well, look at the page before when he's walking down the street. It's blue, green, whatever. And then
he has high hopes. He knows that he's just kind of tweaking things and he's breaking the rules, and that's what he has to do to survive. But it changes drastically in the next page.
Yeah.
Right. That's it.
I think
he's just a memory.
Before he dies, he says something like, maybe I'll make enough money to get out of here one day or something like that.
Yeah.
Right.
The next thing you know, he dies.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just another statistics at this point,
Yeah.
Well, same thing with the guy that Ratface wants to kill because he is dating a white woman.
Oh yeah.
That's really fucking brutal.
He tries to get Batman in on that. That's I didn't. I found it pretty funny. Was that whole thing with the guy Jake basically bitching around Batman. He was telling him when to eat when he couldn't eat and stuff like that. It was kind of weird. You know?
Yeah, that Rasputin-looking motherfucker.
Yeah, who the fuck was that guy? I mean, telling Batman what to do. I mean, I was like, all right, this is getting a little ridiculous now, but I'd rather him take orders from Deacon Blackfire, not the underboss of Deacon Blackfire.
So,
acid.
after that scene, we see where Deacon Blackfire is talking with his number one lieutenant, Jake, and you see Jake from State Farm. He sounds horrible.
Jake definitely does not get out much. It's like
no, he don't. He definitely doesn't.
So, and you can see the true intentions of Deacon Blackfire. He says, "I convert them, you control them." That's the deal. And you see that he's not really hoping to cleanse Gotham of its corruptness. He just wants control of the city. It's his dream to be the ruler of Gotham, And then
after his other attempts at corrupt careers fail, he said, "Oh, what's the answer? Oh, religion. That's what I'm into."
That always works.
Yeah.
I love that splash of that view of Gotham City and how the river looks like blood.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like what's about to come.
And the city itself is black, and as you expand out from the city, everything turns blue.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, this is why color is just so important in this book. It really the color is almost as important as the narration, because it really, every page, it sets the tone on what the character is feeling and what the whole city's feeling at that time. It's really a powerful transition, just looking
Especially
at that panel.
As you open to issue 2, first page of issue 2 is hallucination.
Right.
Dude, this was some sick shit right here.
Word.
I mean, you see Batman with an Uzi just blowing this guy away. And what happened? Okay, Batman really killed somebody with a gun right there.
No, wasn't it
hallucinations?
Yeah,
well, no,
I
think he really did, doesn't he?
He's part of this. I believe this is the first story where Batman was literally shown to kill someone. Because, as he comes out of the nation, he realizes that he's in the middle of this raid on a mob house, and that he's had a hand in butchering this house full of mob guys, but still murdered people.
Or did he murder them?
Dead bodies.
I don't think he kills anybody. He doesn't give in to the fear. We were talking about the fear earlier. He
did though, but he sees in his mind himself shooting someone with a machine gun. And drops
says this
and
feels
then when
so good. It feels terrific.
And when it comes back to his reality, he's standing over a machine gun body with the machine gun he just dropped laying beside it. And everyone else is still in the process of polishing off their guys.
Yeah. His hallucination, he sees Two-Face, and then it's not Two-Face, and he's like Commissioner Gordon.
I mean,
he sees the actual person.
I can't argue with the art, but I guess you can interpret that either way.
Very true.
Which is cool.
It's like the same thing that me and you were talking about, Grumps, that time, the KGB story. It's like, did Batman actually kill him or didn't he kill him? It's like kind of like up to you type of deal.
Yeah.
Until later with KG Beast. Until later when you do find out that he didn't die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
But that was it could also be argued that was a retcon.
Oh, good.
Either way, it's a good story.
And again, you've got the red and the splattered yellow, and man, this is like a scene out of an Alfred Hitchcock horror movie.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Hey, Grumps, you touched on something earlier that about the limited.
I didn't touch anybody or anything.
You've been touching
it. It wasn't me.
So listen, the colors are limited, and it's really if you look at it, it's really primary colors. There's blue, red, and yellow. And if you squint, kind of when you see the pages, that's really all that that Bill Ray used was primaries. Varied uses of them, but just those 3 colors all through 4 books, and he did it really well.
You know, when you guys look at this, does it make you miss this type of coloring versus, the digital coloring today?
No, it doesn't.
Because you can always go back and look at these ones.
Yeah. I like what they're doing with artwork in comics now. I like the palettes. I like the computer manipulation of the images. I really dig all that.
Yeah, and some guys do so much, like just magic with the abilities that they have now digitally.
Yeah.
Makes me wonder what these pages look like, just pencil and ink.
That would be interesting.
So Batman comes out of his hallucination and like Robin said, realizes he's part of a hit job on a mafia boss. And as they're leaving, he notices, a plate of food on the table, and he wants to eat so bad, but Jake intervenes because, they're trying to keep Batman weak and suppressed and under their control. And
damn the man.
Jake pretty much treats Batman like a bitch. I mean, even like punches him. Yeah.
You can tell, but just based on his name being Jake, you can kind of tell he's a dick.
and the inner monologue, Batman says, it'd be fun knocking out a few of Jake's teeth, but I don't do it. The deacon's words have touched me, or have reached me. I've been converted. I've seen the truth. And he just kind of sits there like,
Yeah, like a little kid.
Yeah.
I guess I'm not going to eat this.
This is like, a Batman that, you don't see.
Gave up.
Hardly ever. Yeah, he's given up.
I also like how, you don't see it too much, but the illumination in his eyes, it's a little animated, but you can kind of tell how paranoid he is by his expressions. Like, you don't really see that as often.
Yeah.
Even though this really has like a Kelly Jones kind of vibe, but you can really see the fear in his face every now and then. It kind of tells you that he's really
his
lost.
emotions.
Yeah, he's really lost it.
Right.
And you can't tell if he's in that. Well, he's most likely in that psychedelic stage where he just is completely out of control for that 1 second. And I actually really like that. It's just something that you don't see all the time.
To be able to draw expressive, his eye holes, the white eyes, to be able to draw those with expression is pretty not an easy thing to do. So.
And it's something you see done a lot more often with characters like Spider-Man, Deadpool, but it's not something that is done too often with Batman outside of the animated series.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah, especially when Robin's getting beaten up by the it's book 3 when Robin is being overcome by all those the underdweller guys, and he's asking Batman to help him, and Batman's kind of just standing there looking really distraught.
The next page with the hallucination and all that, I think it's the most color that you see in the book. The snakes and his rat face comes into play here.
It starts getting really trippy, and you start seeing these quick transitions of his face kind of morphing into some other. It's like his head is kind of spiraled, which is kind of cool.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah, he's just hanging out in the sewer.
These days, you wouldn't be able to call him Rat Face. It's not his fault his face looks like that.
Right.
He's an evil prick. It doesn't matter.
It's offensive.
He's beautiful.
Yeah.
By his face.
Yeah.
So, Rat Face takes him above ground to do a hit on a pimp, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, that it was unauthorized.
Right, for dating a white woman.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is, it's funny, this is a lot of the stuff, it's 1988 when this, or 87, whenever this book is being written, but this, New York City was this way back then, unfortunately. It was, obviously remnants of racism and Times Square was full of drugs, pimps, and it's really it's not what it is today. Definitely not.
It almost makes you uncomfortable when you read racism in books today because you're like, man, damn, they really wrote that in there.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I mean,
we're more aware of it now.
We're more aware of it now, and I think that they were too when they did it. But you know, that's one thing about Batman stories is that it's more grounded in reality. You know, I mean, I like that these stories like this, they're really, you know, grounded in real New York and real issues and real politics. You know, it's not so much science fiction stuff, you know, like Justice League or you know, other titles. It's real shit that's going on.
Yeah.
Well, they really captured the grit. You know, they captured the grit of the time of New York. I'd moved to the city in the very beginning of '89, and you'll probably have to edit this out from the podcast, but I'm going to tell you guys a funny story. It was my first maybe month in the city. I was in a taxi. I was off of Times Square somewhere in Hell's Kitchen, and it was bitter cold winter day. So it was like, it was probably, I moved here in March. Yeah, it was a really freezing cold day. And I'm in a taxi and we're at a stoplight. And this woman walks over to the taxi with a like full length fur coat on. And she comes over to the window, which was closed, and she opens her coat, and she was completely naked, completely nude, except for her high heels.
Welcome to New York.
Yeah, and she closed her fur coat and walked away. And I was like, wow, okay, I'm in New York now.
You're like,
pretty
wow,
crazy.
that's sad. So she can't even afford clothes.
I gave her $1.
Saving money.
Yeah, that was like $5 back then, you know? It's like
All you have in Texas is Gramps goes up to cars and shows people, and, you know.
He does what?
You know.
$1's $1, man.
Yeah.
Those trade paperbacks he waits for aren't cheap.
So Ratface gets arrested by the police, and he starts to, you know, squeal a little bit, just like a rat would.
Start singing, yeah.
Batman escapes, and he finds himself in Central Park. And again, here's that 4-panel sequence that Wrightson does, where he pretty much tells the whole story right there. You know,
it's a very hard nod to horror movies and kind of Tales from the Crypt. He's just kind of just melting instantly. You know, it's like
kind of like his Swamp Thing run too.
He's tripping. You know, it's like it's crazy. There's blood all over his face. It's like he's just out of control. But he's trying to kind of find some kind of ground.
Well, what's nuts is even right before that, when like he tries to stop Ratface, and then the cops show up, and then Ratface is about to like kill the cop, and Batman hits him with his right hook, and just drops Ratface in a heartbeat. And then the cop's so excited that he saved him, and the cop catches one too. And it's like this entire time, Batman could have just knocked everyone out, but he's like so caught into this Deacon, I guess, you know, the cult. Yeah. He's just stuck in this cult, or like whatever he thinks is true now. Whereas like he has the power to get out of this, but his mindset is so stuck and he's broken.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, that's his training or whatever, right? Like that's like his default, his program, his own program. He, you know, on occasion, you see throughout the book, he returns to that default, whatever, when he's got to get out of a situation or save somebody or do something. But then he, you know, gets overridden by the drugs and whatever.
Yeah, anytime things are at their worst, then whoever's around is getting the smoke.
Yeah. Then we see the TV, the talking heads on TV. Is this the first time in this book that we see that, or was it in issue 1?
I think there was some of it in issue 1 too.
Yeah, right from the beginning.
Yeah. Which is DKR, like.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can definitely tell that Starlin and Wrightson read and probably enjoyed DKR with the way they do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's almost like this could be like a prequel to DKR.
I wouldn't fight that. Yeah.
I mean, a prequel several years ahead of DKR, obviously, but it shows his strong connection to Jason, especially after what happens later on, and the talking heads and just the whole theme and the vibe of it. I don't know.
Yeah, because also like Bruce, there's a jumping ahead a little bit. Bruce says, no one's ever broken me like this. I've been doing this for 10 years. I've been unstoppable. So in my head, I'm trying to do some math. I'm like, Bruce is probably like 28 years old at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Because he said he's been doing it for about a decade, give or take, So
he'd probably be in his mid to late 30s, maybe. If he I don't know, who knows? He left it off.
32, yeah.
Yeah, it could be, 28, 32, definitely, way before DKR. So his first 10 years.
Yeah, if you read this first and then read DKR, it probably would flow great.
Yeah.
Especially now that Frank Miller did during DK3 gave his the Dark Knight universe version of Death in the Family.
The Last Crusade, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So, Batman scares a couple out on a picnic. And what's funny, I mean, he's out in the middle of the day,
Yeah. Creeping.
Like a raccoon rabies.
Yeah, it's like The Walking Dead.
I mean, he's like, run away! And then he eats their hot dogs.
That's hilarious.
So good.
I mean, so there is some comedy element in this whole story. Skipping ahead a little bit, Jason Todd is starting to figure out, hey, Batman's been missing. He's starting to put the clues together, and he sneaks down into the sewers and disguises himself as one of the underworld, trying to see what's going on. And Batman gets some hot dogs and transforms into a knight again. I thought that was a cool sequence.
Yeah.
That's what food does to you.
Okay. So that's what, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of the turning point where he's kind of gradually just, even though you can see his emblem is ripped off, but he's starting to kind of see that there's a chance that he can kind of rebalance himself, and he's starting to gain confidence again, that he could really have a chance to be Batman again.
I just think it's funny how it's almost like he sees himself as a knight,
Yeah.
Or some kind of angel.
Yeah, he has to kind of create this kind of projection of who he needs to be, just like the Deacon is doing that to himself. It's like he has mentally he has to kind of he has to boost himself forward to kind of just move along.
So Batman sneaks down back into the sewer. Deacon Blackfire is given, a pep rally to the underworlders, getting them all riled up. And as seen previously, Batman noticed that, they keep this door locked for Deacon Blackfire. And now that he's had some magical hot dogs and regained his mojo, he breaks in and he sees that, Deacon Blackfire is nothing but a con man, He's living the life of luxury. Although I was sitting there reading that and going, who has time to bring all that down under the sewer? Chandeliers and
when you have the people for it, listen, and they believe you, anything is possible.
Yeah, I bet those guys banged out that room for him in an afternoon, and then he got them so drugged up they don't even remember it's there.
Acid.
Flurries.
Maybe it was also underneath his little clinic that he had set up. Who knows?
Yeah,
and Batman gets captured again.
Fucking guy.
Yeah, they slapped him with some kind of weird little sack. It looks like a chicken leg.
You want food? I'll give you some food. Wop.
Is that called a blackjack or something?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's a blackjack, but you don't see that in the comics anymore. And up in the '70s,
Yeah, he got slapped with like a bag of coins, you know? It's like crack.
Jim Gordon's trying to convince the mayor that, you know, there's a problem, and he suspects that, you know, it's some kind of corruption going on that needs to be looked into, because, you know, during this whole time, some of the talking heads are talking to people on the streets, and they're just like, yeah, we like what's going on. There's less crime and stuff like that. And they support, you know, Deacon Blackfire and all this stuff. But, you know, the Mr. Mayor's like, you know, kind of like today, leadership looking past a lot of the issues, not focusing on, you know, the welfare of the people, and just kind of looking at more of their own agendas, and then kaboom, he got what he fucking deserved.
They all start getting what they deserve.
Yeah, they all start getting what they deserve.
Oh, Arthur Fleck was right. Get what you fucking deserve.
Yeah. This is the 80s when they were doing political assassinations. Not anymore.
Yeah, well, hard to do that now when big corporate conglomerates own the parent companies of the parent companies that own the comic publishers.
Yeah.
Batman's being taken away by some of the goons, tries to escape and got his hands tied behind his back, and he gets thrown into the nasty waters of the sewer. Robin jumps in to save him, because Robin's been down there pretty much, you know, for a minute under disguise. This is where it gets really, really sick. Robin comes up out of the water in that one page where it's all just the dark panels, and he can hear Batman, but he can't see him. And Batman is saying, like, this is my punishment. You see, I've been bad. I doubted. That was wrong. Batman's fallen back under the spell of the drugs. And Robin's like, what's this smell? What's this smell? And Batman says, it's the damned. And then he turns on his flashlight, and all you see is like all these rotten corpses, and that image of Batman just like kneeling over some rotten dead people. And Batman throws in a line that he also said in DKR. He says, "Welcome to hell."
Yeah,
that splash page. That's
freaking beautiful.
Splash page.
Yeah, welcome to hell, welcome to hell, welcome to hell. Holy crap.
Yeah, the couple of pages leading up was just brutal.
I'd love to see the script and see if, like, Jim Starlin just said, make this as scary as you can. I mean, those images of, like, the dead corpses, dude.
And Jason's like questioning it too while he's walking through the dark. He's like, "What is that I'm walking in?"
Yeah, and you know before it's even revealed.
Yeah.
Yeah, the smell has to be atrocious.
That last picture where Batman's like kneeling down, dude. Oh my God, how disgusting is that?
Hey, can people buy the trade? I mean, Grumps, what year did you buy the trade for this?
I have the original version of the trade, so
okay.
I have no idea.
It did get a pretty recent re-release.
Oh, it did?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. So it can be found.
It shouldn't be difficult to find, and it's not difficult to find the single issues in shops either. We usually have a set or two of the issues around at the shop.
Okay, cool.
That brings me to my public service announcement. You know, right now, books aren't being sent out to publishers, but you can still buy back issues from your local comic shops, or, you know, there's this thing called the interwebs or Spynet or Skyweb or something like that. I don't know. You just look at this TV thing and punch some numbers, and they deliver it to your door, and you can still buy issues like The Cult 1 through 4 from a local comic shop. And
absolutely.
Here's the wonderful thing. Buying these back issues really helps local comic shops. I mean, Robin, you can attest to this. You know, there's no better way to support a local comic shop than buying back issues.
Completely agree.
Yeah, and even if even if your shop is not open for you to walk in and do your shopping like normal, a lot of places are offering curbside pickup, mail out. Some of them, my shop is even doing home delivery. So there's still options,
awesome.
and yeah, so you can still get new comics in your possession. You can know new stuff's coming out, but you can still get your hands on old stuff you haven't read before, like this or anything else. And at the same time, you're helping your shop pay the bills while everything is bad.
So, Robin, let me ask you, how does that work for your shop? I mean, you have one employee that, like, you a massive number of orders, and then a certain day a week, the person drives around and drops them all off, or?
Yeah, right now it's a couple of days a week. So for about 4 hours a day, we have curbside pickup available. You have to make an appointment, and everything will be ready. And then the before and after those hours, typically after, I think, is when home deliveries are done.
Gotcha.
And so there's a lot of stuff like, you don't have to worry. You don't have to have any physical contact with someone. It's just like what a lot of people are doing to order food right now. You place your order either on the phone or online. You pay either with a credit card or PayPal, bank transfer, what have you. And then they'll bring it to your house, leave it in your mailbox, whatever, and then you go grab it after they walk away. And you don't have to worry about having physical contact with anyone or getting too close to anyone.
Right. Well, I tried to do that at one of my shops in Brooklyn a couple weeks ago, and called them. They had the books I wanted, and this is probably the last week they were open. And I was like, let me give you my credit card number. He's like, oh, we don't take cards over the phone. And these people know me, and I was like, you can't take my card number over the phone? I mean, it just seems so, unproductive for a business transaction.
Yeah, so some people just have trouble changing with the times,
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah, because of fraud. It's all fraud. When people do fraud.
It's. I found it really cool. Like last week, that my comic shops delivered home delivery. Like, it felt like a drug deal, but I felt so. Like, I felt incredible that I could just help my local comic shop, and I placed a $50 order on purpose. I was just like, hey, give me 2 sets of White Knight. Like, I just wanted to help them so much, and it's something personal. Like, it's kind of cool that we can kind of do something like that for them,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
What kind of world are we living in where you name drop that you're cult of the Batman and you can't get what you want?
Yeah.
What has this world?
That's not a world I want to live in.
No. The world has gone mad.
Yeah.
And the
not my world.
The fact that Dunk throws out the word fraud right after I say that in front of us. Like, what the fuck?
Well, it's crazy because like so many people live on the edge. Like they're just scared that if there is a fraud charge, they lose the money and they lose the merchandise.
Yeah.
Which is tough. My shop mentioned that a couple of times, but they're taking people's credit cards over the phone and they're doing curbside pickup and and there's moments where like I don't know, I've helped them out where I take orders for people and ship them myself because they don't do shipping because they don't want to worry about shipping and all that stuff, and I'm willing to get comic books to people just to help them out. Like,
yeah, man, you
gotta do what we gotta do.
You helped out Boston Bat a couple weeks ago with a nice stack of books.
Yeah, got him his weekly books for that week because his shop closed a week early.
Good looks.
PayPal comes in.
We're a community and we got to help each other out.
Yeah. Yep.
My shop is taking all PayPal right now. It's like if you call them on the phone, they're just like, give me your PayPal and PayPal me. So honestly, I mean, I don't know if my shop is actually really getting the money or not. I mean, I'm PayPaling, like, I guess the owner of the shop. And he's like, yeah, man. He's like, we're just going to ship your books. He's like, unless we'll have someone just drop them off to you. I'm like, listen, I'm home. So, I mean, I ain't going nowhere. So if you want to have someone drop them off, you can do that. That's fine.
Right.
But, yeah, everything, even, like, just, like, besides, like, buying comics, it's like, I've seen, one of my friends that I used to work with in my old apartment, like, I remember he had no cash on him one time. And we were at a bar. We were just like drinking. And he was like, "Listen," he's like, "I don't have my, he's like, I left all my stuff at home." And the girl was like, "Yeah." She's like, "Do you have PayPal?" And he was like, "Yeah." She's like, "Just PayPal me the money." So it's like PayPal comes in handy for so much shit you don't even think about.
Right.
It's pretty crazy. But then again, you don't know if the the place of business is actually getting the money or the owner's getting the money, who's getting the money, but at least you're paying,
Mm-hmm.
You're not walking out in handcuffs, that's for sure,
So book 3 opens up with the deputy mayor getting jumped after speaking out against Deacon Blackfire. The deputy mayor supports the local police and their investigation into what's going on, and gets dragged down into the sewers. What happens next?
This is as I was referencing earlier on. He gets pulled down into the sewer, and then his decapitated head comes flying. His cappa was detained.
It took me a while when I first saw that. What just? Oh my God, that's his head. Bouncing like a basketball.
It's like a skipping stone.
Yeah. And that's when Robin slaps Batman in the face right after that.
Dude, I love that panel, man.
Settle down.
I posted it on my story earlier today, and I was like, that's payback for slapping Dick.
Yeah. We got to make a meme out of that.
We do, man.
Yeah.
It should be.
Yeah.
Well, have you seen the one? Someone took the old meme, the Batman slapping Dick, and Batman now has a 6-foot pole.
Yeah, with a glove on it.
With a glove on the end, and he's slapping.
Yeah.
I love the next panel.
Whoever came up with that, man, is amazing.
Yeah, I love the next panel where, he's already slapped him, but then he's like holding his hand, like, oh my God. That hurt.
Yeah.
Hey, what a strong jaw. Jesus.
Yeah.
And doesn't skip face day.
Right.
I mean, and plus these guys don't even miss leg day too. It's like, holy cow! Every shot, these guys are just overly insanely.
Yeah, later on we see how strong Jason Todd's legs are.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. When he does that kick.
I'm actually looking at that panel right now.
Yeah, it's like, holy shit. That's the 80s for you, and it's like over the top.
Yep.
I think actually reading this story actually made me appreciate Jason Todd much more. I'm like kind of come to think about it right now. Of all the stories I read with Jason Todd, how much I hated him, I don't know, for some reason now I'm like liking him more.
Yeah, this story was very atypical of his character. I mean, it just wasn't very Jason-esque. Like he was very
not
different
at all
in the story.
He wasn't a dick.
Yeah, he wasn't a dick for once.
It was like he stepped up because he had to.
Yes,
like he knew that he was needed. Like, okay, Batman's fucked. I got to take care of it.
Yep, it was dire.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it was definitely his call to arms moment. It's like, you got to step it up, and he did it.
Right.
No bullshit.
Yeah. Well, it's like if you look at Batman all drugged up, and he's scared. It's like, holy crap, what the hell's going on? Like I have to figure something out because he's not going to help us right now.
Right. I'm
not going to survive if he's all scared. And he did the right thing through this, especially issue 3. Issue 3 is where it's at.
Yeah, totally.
What's crazy is that he slapped Batman. Jason slapped Batman and kind of, woke him up a little bit. And then Batman actually admits, the Deacon broke me, Robin.
Yeah.
He like admits it to him, and then he's just like, he's mad about it. And then they're planning their escape. But even you can still see that Batman has doubts about himself,
That's a great page, Gramps.
And those doubts linger throughout the rest of the story. Like even when it's coming up to the final battle, when he makes his big return to the city, he still isn't sure that he can do this.
I love this part where Jason says there's folks that think he's some kind of hero, a messiah. He's got the entire city polarized, split into pro and anti-Deacon camps. Batman just walks away unbelievable. It's like, if that's not a fucking microcosm of the fucking world we live in.
That's what Grumps would say if he was in the bat suit.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Oh, it's funny.
And then the next panel is like very, what I wanted to say before too is like these news panels are very reminiscent of DKR as well. It's almost like you're flipping back to the DKR pages.
Yeah, all the talking head stuff.
Yeah. It's
and
like
Mrs. Swan.
One cool thing we skipped by
Joan Rivers. It's like
I don't know if we skipped by this page or not, or if it's still coming up. But there's a page where 2 cops are in a car and they're commenting on how empty the city is because all the homeless have disappeared and all the criminals have are being murdered, and one of the cops is named Klaus.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
I noticed that. That was cool.
And he says, like, let's get out of here.
Yeah, that's back when they were in the square.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Klaus, yeah. Nice. Awesome nods throughout this whole book.
Yeah, for sure. Heavy influence.
So Batman and Robin, they're trying to get out of there. Deacon Blackfire and Jake are having a toast, talking about their plans, and he's just
Well, before that, you get the origin of Deacon Blackfire, basically.
Yeah, talking about
Gordon and I don't know what the guy's name is.
Oh yeah, they looked up all these, showed that he had been around for
years,
centuries, decades.
He's been around since the 30s, they said, right, or something like that.
1921.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
First arrest.
As far it's criminal background.
Reminds me of somebody said earlier, Ra's al Ghul or Vandal Savage.
Right.
That type of guy.
But one of the officers in this story suggests that he thinks that those early records must have been this guy's father or something.
Yeah,
and it does play into the possibility, the obvious possibility that this whole story that he's given to his followers is a fabrication. Given that there's so much religious imagery in it, all those the bullet points that he checked off to convince them of his stature, that could all be just this tale that he spun to win them over with all of this religious talk.
Yeah.
And using conveniently being able to use his father's criminal record could play into that.
Crazy.